Hi, Danielle. How are you?
You guys are just making me laugh. I'm glad to be here.
It's Monday. Uh, do we know, are you going to get a Cybertruck? You have a deposit, right?
So I do have a deposit, but we really needed a truck. So we got a Ford F-150
Shocking.
Lariat in the meantime. And now I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe we should put it to a vote. Should I trade in the Ford F-150 for the Cybertruck? I'm not sure what to do now.
Was it the, it's not the Lightning though, right?
No, not the Lightning,
Okay.
just the regular
Just
gas
a
powered.
regular old F-150. No, I mean, still a beautiful truck, obviously. But I mean, maybe the better question here, if we get back to the market, is do we see, he promised we see some deliveries by the end of the year. How much is that actually going to be? And maybe whereabouts do you feel like you are on that waiting list?
Well, my husband signed up for it probably, he wasn't one of the first, but in the very beginning, before it was very well known. So I would imagine we're, somewhere near the front of the line, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, Elon kind of pointed to, I think, a handful. Like, let's be honest, it's not going to be a lot. Maybe we get, 10 or 20 delivered by the end of the year, but production has begun. Obviously, we're seeing a bounce today on this India headline as well. To tie this back in a little bit, $24,000 Tesla going to be made apparently in India and then sold in that market, which opens the door for so much more possibility, obviously, for the company. So 3.5% kind of a day here after 2 days of a pullback, I guess if you want to call it that. Still very strong, though. What are your thoughts here overall at this point for Tesla?
Yeah, definitely. So I can go ahead and throw on a Tesla chart here too, as well. And, I hadn't heard that news. And now that I'm hearing it, that is just absolutely phenomenal. I had looked into, Microsoft, Google making some stronger ties with India. And I mean, overall, that's very bullish for these companies. And I think that it's a great place for them to expand. So when you're looking at Tesla doing that as well, especially the 24K model, I mean, that just has some massive potential, and it's really helping Tesla bounce at this 34 EMA. So, normally when I'm looking at a stock that has fallen on earnings, I'm looking at the daily chart and I want to see the 21 EMA, which was right about here. We fell through that zone. So my next level is right around here at 250 at the 34. So I mean, I think that's perfect. It's a nice zone for a bounce. It's very typical in a bullish uptrend. You can see on the lower time frame charts, you have a very nice trend and you have volume as well. So, hey, I'm all for the Tesla bounce. You know how I love it.
First of 2 major weeks coming up starting tomorrow, I guess, for earnings. As we get into the big ones, the ones we wait for 4 times a year here, let's kick things off with give me Google, I guess, to start things off here, but there's a lot to get to.
Yeah, of course. So when we look at Google, Google has been the one that's been weaker out of the major tech stocks. Okay, so here's a Google chart. I'm looking at the last 12 quarters. These bubbles demonstrate what the gap was overnight post earnings. Now you can see, up until about January of 22, this thing was gapping higher post earnings, really good moves going into earnings. And then what happened was that ad revenue really started to slow down and it's been incredibly volatile. Now, I've been buying shares of stock throughout this time because I feel like, YouTube is huge. I feel like this thing is going to come back. So I've been making it more of a long-term play, but around earnings, I'll caution you, it's pretty sketchy. Last quarter, we did get, a 1% gap and a post-earnings move on some good AI news. But they've been a little behind on the AI front. So I'm cautious going into Google. I mean, you can see they've had some pretty big moves lower in recent quarters. But ultimately, I'm looking for it to continue on and make new highs.
It's interesting you bring that up. Is she still there?
We lost my video.
All right. It's interesting that you bring that up, the AI aspect of this. So much attention has been paid to that when it comes to any kind of headline these days. Is that really going to be the sticking point when it comes to these earnings reports across the board? It's not necessarily what are they doing in AI, but how much and when and timelines and things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, AI has just been a massive story this year. And so when you're looking at that, I mean, it's really helped to it's really just helped to move the overall stock market in an upwards direction because there's just so many applications. So I do think that AI is going to be pretty critical part of this report. And I also think that their ad revenue is going to be very important. When you're looking at what the ad revenue looks like, that's been a major factor that has caused this stock price to go lower. So those are going to be the two areas in focus for me.
All right, let's go to the one that we talk about a lot, but the biggest of the big, or one of the biggest of the big, Microsoft. Hey, she's back. There she is. Microsoft, give me your thoughts here after the close tomorrow.
So I think that Microsoft is the most important one this week. And I also think that Microsoft is the one that's most likely to keep going. So when you look at Microsoft over the last 12 quarters, I mean, yes, we did have 2 quarters during the bear market that we had some downward moves. But when you look at the trend recently, we've had an incredibly strong trend. Last quarter, we had a breakaway gap, 7.7%. I will note that this stock, it can pull back on earnings even when it has an EPS beat if the beat just isn't strong enough. But what I will tell you is when the stock pulls back, it's almost always a buy because historically, quarter over quarter, during the 8 days post earnings, you're going to see buyers coming in and pushing that stock price higher, even if we have a little bit of a disappointment. So I'm looking for support right around, 340, and then we have another support zone around 330 as well.
I mean, I'm just looking at the list right now. There's so much. Hey, we lost her again.
Sorry, guys. I don't know. I'll have to work on this technology here.
That's okay. No problem. There's so much to choose from this week. Did you see Barbie by chance this weekend? Mattel's coming up tomorrow.
I did not see Barbie. I can't say that I'm a huge fan, but I also don't have any daughters that have been trying to drag me to it. So
155 million for the opening weekend. Pretty impressive. Meta, obviously, going back to the AI front, they've been making some headlines of late over the past couple of weeks on the AI front. What do we think here for Meta?
So when you're looking at Meta, I would tell you that you should probably exhibit some caution here because you can see that the last 2 quarters it had major moves, right? You had a 14% gap up last quarter, 19% gap up the quarter before that. So what happens when you have these 2 major gaps is, it's a 3rd quarter in a row, right? So if we don't see a big beat, it's going to be a big disappointment. So, you have threads that had come out this quarter. Initially, we had a lot of signups, and then after that, it just kind of fizzled. I personally never got on it. I guess you guys could tell me a little more about that because I think you did sign up. But I don't know. I'm cautious around this just because it's been so strong.
It tanked after the initial signups. Down. I was reading at the end of last week, down 70% active daily users right from the first couple of days. I want to get your thoughts here on 2 things. Intel, one, and then going back to your brand new F-150, Ford is coming up this week as well.
Sure. So looking at an Intel chart, here's the thing with this is I know they're a good company and people always argue with me when I say that I don't think Intel is a great buy. I was talking to my brother about this and he was saying, oh no, it's a great buy right now. I can't believe you don't like it. And, I will say that it has shifted off of the lows, right? You've been climbing off of the lows. Last quarter, you did have a nice gap higher. Yes, we have consolidation and we have a short-term bullish pattern. So, I mean, there's a few reasons why you could look at it up into, let's say 35, maybe 36. But the reason why I generally don't like trading this one is because it's just a relative strength loser. When you look at the way that it careened down to the lows, you have quarter over quarter over quarter where it just continually gaps lower. For me, that makes it much harder to try to be bullish on something like that. If you look at some others like Lam Research, it has recovered so much better than Intel has from the bear market. You're in a bullish uptrend. You've got some consolidation here. You're, just on a much stronger path to recovery. So I tend to try to kind of avoid Intel.
Great stuff. And then Ford quickly, Danielle. How do you like the truck, first of all? And then what do you think here for the overall stock? Coming up Thursday, guys, after the close, we get Ford earnings.
You know, I really like the truck. I've never had a truck before, but I live in Texas. We were moving. It's just something that was more of a necessity. And honestly, I think the Ford technology is pretty decent. Tesla is much better. I do also have a Tesla Model X. And so, you know, comparatively, technology is much better in the Tesla. But for a truck, I mean, it's really nice. It's effective. And hey, you know, like I said, I live in Texas. You got to have a truck. So I do like that. Not sure about the trade-in just because then I would have 2 electric vehicles. But, you know, looking at the stock price here, I think that Ford has done a pretty good job recovering over the last quarter. I mean, you can see that we've seen a low come in. We have a little bit of a head and shoulders. We have a breakout to the upside. For them, I just don't think that the electric F-150 is too much of a draw as much as what they think it is anyways. So I don't know. This one's back and forth.
Yeah, some of the initial reports, obviously, of real life usage with the Lightning version versus the fuel version, not the same whatsoever. And even the range that they were projecting, not even close to the same. So we're going to send Danielle Shay a brand new webcam, and we'll reconnect next week. Is it fixed or no? It should not. Okay. Thank you so much, Danielle Shay, VP of Options over at Simpler Trading. Best of luck this week. We'll speak again next week.
Thanks, guys. I will see you soon, and hopefully see you next time.
See you.